Welcome back to Two Marks and a Spark. We just watched WWE Bad Blood. I promise you, me and Russ are not going to stall and pad for time the way they did on this show.
No, no, no. They did pad this one out a little. It could have been a 3 hour show, and it ended up being about three and a half.
It really could have been a 2.5 hour show,
Yeah, I think it could have.
and they stalled. Um, let's get right into it, Russ.
Sure, let's get right into it. First
This whole
match.
this whole thing started with probably the best match of the night, which was Drew McIntyre and CM Punk in just the bloodiest WWE match I've seen in years.
That was incredibly gory. It was a bloodfest. These guys were juicing like crazy. Very brutal match. Uh, it was
I mean,
everything
there's
I
Crimson
expected.
Mask, and then there's what these two did.
Yeah,
Like,
this was
this
like
was not just a little bit of blood. This was
this
all the
wasn't
blood.
just a facial crimson mass. This was like blood everywhere.
This was
All
like a crimson bodysuit. Like, it was everywhere, and the mat looked horrible.
Yes, it did. I think they put down when they came back after that match. It was obvious they had put down a clean cover on the mat because you couldn't see blood all over the place.
Well, they had to. I imagine it was a health hazard.
Yeah, they didn't worry about that back in the old days when nobody believed in bloodborne pathogens, you know. But now that we know better, kind of like the concussions, you know, you can't ignore the science after a while. And if
Well,
I don't know if I knew I was going to be bleeding, doing a lot of bleeding with another guy that was going to be bleeding, I sure as hell would have wanted everybody involved to take blood tests beforehand to make sure you didn't have anything, no
well,
hepatitis or AIDS or anything.
Punk ends up winning this thing
I'm not
by
surprised. I didn't want him to, but I'm not surprised he did.
shoving beads. I can't make this up. By shoving those beads in McIntyre's mouth and hitting a GTS, presumably choking him to death.
Right,
Uh, this is not the first time someone looked dead on this show, by the way. This would
right.
happen again in the
Well,
next match.
I don't. I think this was. I know there's still a few months left of the year, but I think I'm going to end up naming CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre as being the best feud of the year. And I don't see anything else surpassing it in the next several months, maybe. But I think it's been really superb. I don't.
Danielson,
Drew,
Danielson
Drew
Moxley
losing doesn't
could.
hurt. Go ahead.
Danielson Moxley could if they keep it going.
Yes, they could.
Uh, the next match was absolutely offensively awful. Nia
This
Jackson
one, this
Bailey.
one, this one I didn't like.
Oh my God.
I
I
mean, I
didn't
love
think
Bailey's one of my all-time favorites. I'm not a fan of Nia Jax's work, and I'm not a hater on her. You know, I don't hate her because she can't cut a promo. She doesn't wrestle that good. Uh,
this was horrible.
I I just don't like her title reign, and they keep saying, "Oh, she's so dominant. She's the most dominant champion ever," and I'm not buying it. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Dude, I, we both love Bailey, but this just a
This was
dude that
just This was like objectively wrong. You know what I mean?
this was a death sentence for like everything good that had happened in the last half hour, and this match went on and on and on, and it just didn't stop, Russ. It just felt like it went forever, and it
It
was
was just
like
yeah.
it
It,
was
it dragged
15
on, and then
minutes.
we got another chapter of the little Tiffy time thing with her acting like she's going to cash in, and then she
You know what's
doesn't.
sad? That was the best part of the match.
Yeah,
That was the
I
best
was
part of the
hoping
match.
that she would turn on Nia Jax, and
Get the damn belt off her.
yeah, I think that would have been great. But if they're going to do that, they're going to make us wait for it. We're going to have to endure a few more weeks of Nia as champion,
Believe
at
me,
least.
folks, if you think this show is going to be very, very short, you're very, very wrong. I've got a rant coming. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Then we had Finn Balor and Damian Priest. This was a match.
This was pretty good. It was I was hoping that Damian Priest would retain the title. Didn't
Well,
know
this
for
wasn't
sure how
for a
they were going to
title.
do that. What?
This wasn't for a title. This was just Priest and Balor.
Oh, that's right. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Uh, but this was all right, you know. It was better than the match we just saw with Bailey and Nia.
Buddy, me and you could have had a better match than that.
Well, you think so?
Than Nia and Bailey.
Well, I hope so. It'd be hard to do worse, wouldn't it?
And then we get the absolute worst segment of all time.
Triple H comes
Good
out.
God. He looks like he didn't want to be there. I
Yeah, this was a
he,
very long, drawn out segment. Then
no,
this
this
kept
was
going
rough.
on. You can tell they were killing time.
No, Triple H comes out and he looks like he wants to leave immediately. He looks immediately uncomfortable. And he's like, we're making history tonight. We're going to make history next month in Saudi Arabia and blah, 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 blah.
The crowd was not hot to hear about Saudi Arabia.
And I don't think Hunter was hot to talk about it either because he looked mildly embarrassed.
Yeah,
Uh,
it didn't seem to get over very well.
well, he didn't look very happy to be out there.
Well,
So I don't.
this is some kind of new title. They're going to call it the Crown, the Royal Crown title or some shit.
The Crown Jewel Championship. There's going to be a men's and a women's.
Crown Jewel, the Crown Jewel. I always
It's gonna
keep wanting to say Crown Royal because I'm thinking
because we probably are going to need a lot of it to get through Crown Jewel. Anyway,
yeah,
that's
right.
half a bottle at least. Uh,
He's
so
right.
so Hunter is going on and on and on, and finally he unveils the ugliest title you've ever seen,
God, that looked like some kind of piece of shit. I don't know, it looked like a transformer that was halfway transformed into something.
and it's going to be men's champions facing off from each brand. So world champions from each brand are going to face off both men's and women's.
Very
And
odd looking title.
and finally Triple H spits all this out, and I think Gunther had just heard enough. I
Yeah,
I'm choosing to believe Gunther said, "This sucks. I'm going out there."
it was good to see Gunther though.
And Gunther walks out and he looks so annoyed. And like he also wants none of this.
He got a pretty nice pop from the crowd though for such a heel, you know.
Gunther gets a nice pop and then immediately ruins it by calling out Goldberg, who was there.
One of many guest stars that were seated in the audience that were introduced in between matches, and they teased Goldberg versus Gunther match, and I hope to God we don't get that.
Oh, we're gonna
Has
get it.
anybody forgotten the last time we saw Goldberg wrestle in the WWE ring
It was
against the
awful.
Undertaker, where they damn near killed each other? They
That
damn near
wasn't the last time.
paralyzed each other. It was one of the worst matches in the history of wrestling.
Somehow that wasn't the last time either guy wrestled. I don't know how. Anyway, let's not forget that albatross of a match Goldberg had with Bobby Lashley. Anyway,
Oh, I forgot. I'd forgotten all about that.
where Gage Goldberg got locked in a hurt lock. Bobby Lashley doesn't work for the WWE anymore. Anyway,
That's correct.
so this segment continues. Goldberg jumps the barricade. Folks,
Right.
I can't make this up. They start swearing at each other. Triple H again just wants nothing to do with any. He is staying out of the way. He doesn't want anything to do with any of this shit. Triple H is looking at these two guys like, you two better fucking not, because I do not want to deal with either one of you.
I don't blame him, man.
Like,
Absolutely not.
he's like, I will fucking call Atlanta PD. I do
Uh,
not care.
but since seeing Gunther versus Bill Goldberg is not something that you and I really want to see, don't be surprised if we're going to end up seeing it.
Well, Gunther called him a one trick pony. I popped. Uh, That was funny.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think Triple H.
he said it a couple of weeks ago. He said that Goldberg was his favorite wrestler, but he was only doing that just to get a little dig in at Bret Hart when they were in Canada there,
So
because Bret
anyway,
Hart hates Goldberg.
so anyway, fucking Goldberg, who is how old?
I don't know, old enough to know better.
57 years old.
Well,
As you as you said,
that's
old
getting
enough
up there,
old enough to know better.
right? Well, a couple of weeks ago, Dory Funk Jr. actually wrestled a match, and he's like 81 or 82 years old.
Don't remind me.
That's
Anyway,
that's ridiculous, isn't it?
so then also clearly very annoyed with the situation, Sami Zayn says fuck this
Right.
and jumps Gunther from behind.
I enjoyed that.
And never in my life have I louder said when I've been home alone, thank God for Sami Zayn.
That's
Uh,
right.
because Sami Zayn very clearly had also just seen enough and just said no more.
Right. And we will be getting Sami Zayn versus Gunther Monday night
Yep.
on our first Raw that returns to 2 hours.
And finally, I think Adam Pierce figured out, oh, there's a problem out here because here he comes.
Yeah.
And he splits this whole thing up finally.
With all of the black shirted security guys.
This segment was awful.
Well, it seemed like it filled up about a half hour of time
It
overall.
did
Maybe it
not.
wasn't quite that long, but it was
It did not.
close.
It was like 10 minutes.
Well, it felt like it felt a whole lot longer than that. It
It,
felt like it was a half an hour. You know what I mean?
dude, this was one of the worst segments, maybe ever. Um,
Yeah,
this
there's just
this was right up there with the worst of Vince Russo. Anyway, I couldn't believe this. I I was sitting there watching this in shock. This whole thing just had me fucking paralyzed. I couldn't believe it. Like
yeah.
this was on pay-per-view.
It just didn't feel like it was very well thought out. It felt like it was thrown together at the last minute to pad out the amount of time. They
Oh
could have
no.
given us another match. They could have had the ladder match, the tag team ladder match they had on SmackDown last night could have been on this show. You know?
They could have put Gunther versus Sami Zayn on this thing.
Yeah, they could have.
Anyway, we finally get back to wrestling because, in some roundabout way, this is still a wrestling company. Uh, though it certainly didn't feel like it after whatever the hell I just
Yeah.
watched. Um,
Next, we had a title match.
Rhea Ripley against Liv Morgan for the women's world title with Dominic Mysterio in a shark cage. And man, Dominic Mysterio was having a panic attack this whole match.
Yeah, and he
Uh,
sure was. He did it pretty well. It's a crazy gimmick. Like I might have mentioned, I last time I saw a shark cage was years and years ago when Razor Ramon was wrestling Double J and
Supposedly,
the
the last
dog was
time
in
they
the
did this, it
cage.
was something involving Carmella. I do not remember that.
Carmella. Oh yeah, I haven't seen her in a long time.
Anyway, so speaking of nobody involving Carmella, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan have about the best match they can for about 15, 20 minutes. And really, I think Liv and Rhea's goal was let's try to make these people forget what the fuck they just watched.
Well, they did pretty good.
Let's try to make sure these people don't remember that awful Triple H segment that lasted way too long, that really shouldn't have been on the show.
I was cheering for Rhea Ripley, but I did not expect her to win. I thought the way they were going to book it is basically the way they did. Although there was another wrinkle, we had another
So
return.
anyway, Dom falls out of the cage
Right.
that's hoisted above the ground. He's chained to the floor of the cage so he doesn't, die. At some point, because they showed Arn Anderson in the crowd, at some point I was begging Arn Anderson to pull his Glock out and just start,
Oh yeah,
just
that's
unload
right.
right on Dominic. Anyway, I was just like, just shoot the fucker down. See what happens. You got good aim, right, Arn? You won't hit him, will you?
That's right. Yeah.
Hell, even if you do, it'd still be better than the Triple H segment.
Yes. Yes, but this was a better match than the other women's match by far.
Well, anyway, as Dom is hanging there, Rhea grabs a kendo stick and starts hitting him like a pinata.
Poor
This was funny.
Dominic. That's right, like a pinata. Exactly.
Speaking of absolutely hilarious, what happened next made me laugh really hard because Raquel Rodriguez, out of the Shadow Realm, because I don't know where she came from,
She's been gone since the Royal Rumble almost.
mauls Rhea Ripley and causes a DQ, and that's the end of the match. And Raquel Rodriguez is back and in the Judgment Day.
Right. And so now they're going to have her feud with Rhea, maybe.
I have no clue what they're going to do with her. No
But
earthly idea.
Raquel, she was impressive. Last time I saw her, I think
She's
she did
really
real well.
good.
She did well on the Rumble, but wasn't too long after that she was injured. So it's
She's
been a
really
while since we've
good,
seen.
but the problem with her is she hasn't been able to stay healthy. Uh,
Yeah.
well, the next match,
Our main event, if you will.
if you have insomnia, the beginning of this match may very well cure it.
This was a this was a series of very lengthy entrances, one after another, that
So,
took up enough time to get another match in.
so Solo and Jacob actually enter in relatively normal fashion, as normal as Jacob Fatu can be, anyway. Uh, he still looks demonic.
Yeah, which works for him.
And then, speaking of the Shadow Realm, here comes the University of Arkansas Pine Bluffs band as they spawn from, well, God knows where. Um, they have surrounded the ring, they have invaded, and they start playing Cody's music.
That's right.
After they finish playing Cody's music, Cody's actual music plays. But they don't just say wrestling has more than one royal family once, they said it twice, just to really piss me off. Anyway,
Mhm.
Cody decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure it takes me 20 fucking minutes to get to the ring.
It sure felt like it.
And Cody just, like he was taking a casual walk along the beach,
Right.
slowly takes his mask off because he has that same mask from WrestleMania again.
Right.
No brandy this time. No, that might have made this better
Yeah.
somehow. I don't know how.
Somebody posted a screenshot of her backstage watching the entrances. I've seen that on my phone.
And then, and then, another orchestra appears.
Right? A second orchestra.
This one was from Georgia.
Between this and all the guests in the audience, we had lots and lots and lots of musicians on this show.
Yeah, a lot of musicians, a lot of really musically inclined people here.
Very much so.
It is Atlanta. That's all I'm gonna say.
I hope they all belong to the union.
Me too. Anyway, so Roman decides, you know what? Fuck you, Cody. I'm gonna make my entrance longer.
Yeah, I tell you what, you could have walked the dog went out for a smoke and took a crap of the time it took for these guys to get to the ring. You know?
Dude, Roman walked slower than The Undertaker toward the
Oh, I
end.
know. I know.
I
He's like in slow
could
motion.
not believe it. I was in shock with how slow Roman was moving. I was like, is he okay? Does he have to
I
shit?
think I think they just had a lot of time to fill up.
And Roman is walking and walking. You'd swear it was a WrestleMania ramp because he just kept walking. And this was actually like a fairly normal length ramp, but
Yeah,
Roman made it look like it was the New York City Marathon.
sure. Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. And finally, Roman gets in the ring. But the match doesn't start yet
right. No, of course
because the
not.
referee decides I'm going to look really confused for 2 minutes.
What was that all about?
I don't fucking know. And then finally the bell rings.
Yes,
By the way, I described that much quicker than it actually happened.
yes.
And I know my explanation took a long time, but trust me, that took 6 times longer.
It was unbelievable. Yeah,
It
it really
was, quite frankly, almost impressive.
right. Good one. Yes.
And then the match starts. And then they start staring at each other. Well, first, Roman and Cody whispered sweet nothings to each other. They had to get that out of the way. as
Yes.
as Devlin, friend of the show, put it, oh, how cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was adorable, you know.
Yes, it was.
And then Devlin responded, start the fucking brutality already. Jesus Christ.
Right. Yeah,
And
it took a while to get going.
this match was like 25 minutes, but really it was like 15. And it ends with Tama and Tonga running down. The ref's down. They interfere.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy, again, a lot of Shadow Realm spawning tonight because there's Jimmy Uso.
Correct. Yep.
Super kick, super kick. Has his own super kick party. I didn't know the Young Bucks were here.
That's right.
Anyway, so he takes everybody out. Roman hits a spear and wins.
Yes, he did. Just
And
like that.
then
It was over just like that.
and then Roman looks really confused because he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
Right.
To Jimmy. And then him and Cody stare at each other again and whisper more sweet nothings to each other. And then here comes Dwayne.
Yes.
Dwayne's music hits,
Thank you. Yes,
and he
yes sir.
does absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Dwayne does nothing. He
Right.
he makes the throat slit symbol after counting to 3 and then he leaves. And Michael Cole said the final boss is back.
Yes.
I mean, cool line, Michael.
Yep.
And that was bad blood.
Right. That was bad blood. That was bad blood number three. The first one in like what, 18 years.
The fourth one, first one in 18 years.
Fourth one. Yeah, you're right. I stand corrected. Yes,
Russ,
yes, sir.
what grade would you give Bad Blood, or as I'm going to call it, Bad Stalling?
Um, Really, it wasn't the worst show I've seen by any means, but it was disappointing.
Oh
I'd
God,
give it a
no.
C plus, B minus, B minus, maybe.
I'd go B minus to B because I think that first match and the last match, once it got going, were both incredible.
Very good. Well, yeah,
And Rhea versus Liv for what it was really good.
yes, it was.
So anyway,
And the others are just kind of forgettable. Bailey versus Nia Jax.
oh, that
Well,
wasn't forgettable. That was offensive.
hopefully Bailey got a really good paycheck out of it. I hope she got paid very, very well for putting Nia over. She should have got $1 million as far as I'm concerned.
Give Bailey the winner's purse for that match. I don't care if she lost.
Hey, I hear you, man.
Oh, she lost. I don't care. Listen to me.
Exactly.
I don't care. Um, Nia needs to lose the belt like yesterday.
I
Uh,
agree.
I give it a B minus. It wasn't a
B
bad
minus,
show
C
by
plus,
any stretch.
yeah.
This was not a bad show by any stretch. It's just like,
It could have been a whole lot better. We've had maybe we're just a little bit spoiled. We went through a few years though where every pay-per-view you dreaded, and now we've had several really, really excellent ones this year. Maybe I was just a little bit spoiled going into this one and expected too much.
I think it's partly that we're spoiled, and I think it's also partly that there's so many damn pay-per-views between them and AEW.
Yeah, yes, there is an awful lot of them.
Like we have another pay-per-view next week.
Next Saturday, 1 week from tonight, we have AEW Wrestle Dream.
Such a stupid name.
Well,
Anyway,
it seems a little flaky to me, but what do I know? You know,
Russ, we don't know anything. That's why this show's called Two Marks and a Spark.
Two marks and a spark. Yeah, well, I'm not an expert. I'm just a mark. I'll be the first one to admit that.
Well, you are a mark. That's why
Yep.
we hired you for this show. Anyway, uh, Russ, do you think Wrestle Dream will be better, worse, or about the same as Bad Blood?
Um, I'm going to say about the same.
I actually think there's a chance it's better.
What matches are you looking forward to? I know we've got to have John Moxley versus Brian Danielson.
Shelton Benjamin versus Swerve Strickland is going to be incredible.
Yes, and that's what we knew when MVP showed up that there was a good chance we would see either him or possibly Bobby Lashley.
We're going to see them both.
Oh, well, I think that's all right. I think that that little faction they never really got a chance. And here's another thing to feed into the rumors and speculation. When we first saw the Hurt Business, weren't they involved with that group that Shane McMahon was starting to form?
Uh huh.
Yeah, there was sort of an underground fight club kind
Well,
of a
the
thing.
Observer reported today apparently
I mean,
that
I mean, bringing Shane McMahon would fit right in with what they're doing with those guys, maybe.
well, the reporting is that Shane is not under contract with AEW, but that's coming from the Observer. So, take it with a grain of salt and a shake of pepper and all that.
Are you are you suggesting that Dave Meltzer is not the most reliable reporter?
I am suggesting that Dave Meltzer is Dave Meltzer. I'm not going to say any more than that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say he's never been right because he's been right the times he was right. However, guess what? His in recent years, his batting average has gone way down, and
Here's the
According to a
thing.
lot of people in the business, they don't. It seems like most pros don't really like the guy very much.
Most people in the business listen to Mike Johnson because
Yep,
Mike Johnson doesn't get stuff wrong very often.
that's important.
But folks, that's going to do it for us. Shockingly, we did this show in record time, mostly because there wasn't a whole lot to actually talk about.
Yeah, it was over with kind of quick.
This show felt like it flew by for like the first hour. And then everything after that was like, oh, good God.
Yeah, it was really taking a dive, wasn't it?
Taking a dump, so to speak. All right, folks. You know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe on
Yes,
YouTube, follow on TikTok, do all that good stuff.
absolutely.
And we'll see you next week for the Wrestle Dream post show that I'm sure will start much later than this one because, well,
It's AEW. They'll
it's
probably start at
AEW
7 and go till midnight.
or 2 in the morning if we're really misfortunate.
That's right, because they're probably going to have to throw in between now and then, they're going to have to throw in 12 more matches.
Well, they already have 7 matches for the main card plus 1 for the pre show. So, you know,
Well, with that, the pre show, they usually end up having about a dozen matches and they have like 60 different performers on their show. It's crazy.
well, you can't say they don't get people on the card.
That's right. You got that right.
And at least it's not just a bunch of rematches.
Right.
I'll give them that. At least it's not just a bunch of the same match over and over again.
Correct.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe. You know all the deal.
Yes.
Folks, we're going to get out of here. Damon, play your fucking music.